Hi everybody, this is going to be another discography video, and I can't remember if I did a discography on this band yet, but if I did, I would like to do it again because I do have a lot more albums by this artist than I did the last time that I made one of the videos, if I did make a video. I can't remember if I did or not. So here I am with an update of a discography review of all of the albums by one of my favorite all-time bands of all time, Led Zeppelin. It's a brilliant. They are one of the definitely in my top five favorite bands of all time. They did things that were cutting edge at that time. They really pushed the boundaries of rock and where it could go, and it's a shame that that they don't tour anymore as Led Zeppelin. I mean, Robert Plant does some solo stuff, but I mean, he's got a really big ego, and I think that he really needs to get back together with Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and Jason Bonham, the son of the late John Bonham, one of the best drummers of all time. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about all of the albums that Led Zeppelin released that I have. So let's get started with the discography. Their very first album, their debut album, Led Zeppelin. It came out in 1969. This is the original CD release, and this is the newly remastered 2004 release. And it's an amazing album. I love it. It definitely has some of the greatest guitar riffs of all time. My favorite song on it is Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Now this is interesting because a lot of the songs on this were stolen. Led Zeppelin has been infamous for stealing a lot of their songs. My opinion on that is they took the songs and made it their own. That's why they credit themselves as the writers. They may not be the original writers, but they certainly did it better than the original people did. So that's my opinion on the stealing songs myth of Led Zeppelin. Their second album, Led Zeppelin 2. This is the original release, and this is the remaster from 2014. And this came out in 1969, the same year that the debut album came out, and once again, it is a fantastic album. My favorite song on it is the Lemon Song, although A Whole Lot of Love is a close second. And their third album came out in 1970, Led Zeppelin 3. This is the remaster, and this is the regular edition. And when it came out on vinyl, they had a wheel right here, which the remaster has, where if you spin it, the circle spots on the album here change, which I think is really cool. The original CD doesn't have that. So when this album came out, a lot of fans were shocked by it because it was very different than the first two albums, which were really rocky. This one was more acoustic based, especially the B side of the album. And it took a lot of fans some time to really get into that, but I loved it right away after I first heard it. And my favorite song on it would probably be Since I've Been Loving You. I also really love Tangerine, one of the best acoustic songs that Led Zeppelin does. Next came their most popular album, Led Zeppelin 4, which doesn't have a definitive name. Some people call it Led Zeppelin 4, some people call it Led Zeppelin Untitled, some people call it Zoso from the symbols, from right here on the symbols. Oh, that's upside down, sorry. And it's definitely one of my top 20 favorite albums of all time. That's amazing. And my favorite song on it is Stairway to Heaven. Although Rock and Roll, Black Dog, and When the Levee Breaks are amazing too. It's hard to pick a favorite. Their next album, Houses of the Holy, which has one of the coolest album covers of all time. It is once again a very different music style that they were doing before from their previous 4 albums, but again, a very, very great album. I loved it when I first heard it. And my favorite song on it would have to be Over the Hills and Far Away. Next, their 6th album was a double album. One of my favorite all-time albums of all time. Physical Graffiti. Definitely. I love every single song on this. I mean, it's really hard to pick a favorite because you put it on and you go, ooh, I love that song. And then the next song comes on and you go, ooh, I love this song. And then the next song comes on and you go, oh, I love this song. And that happens so on and so on. It's an amazing album. Definitely a great achievement by the band. But if I had to pick a favorite, I would have to pick In My Time of Dying. This is an amazing album. Next came an album called Presence, which had a very strange symbol on it. Not a lot of people know what it means, but I don't either. But another really rocky album, which was great. I loved it. My favorite song on it would have to be Nobody's Fault But Mine. Although For Your Life is amazing too. And I never was really a big fan of the first track, Achilles' Last Stand. I mean, not to say that I hate it, but I just never really got into it. Next came a live album, one of my favorite live albums of all time. The Song Remains the Same, the soundtrack to their film, which was just the concert film from Madison Square Garden. And this is the newly released version of it with extra songs on it. And I actually like the live tracks of this on this album of Rock and Roll, Black Dog, Over the Hills and Far Away, The Rain Song, and Stairway to Heaven better than the album versions. I actually like these live versions of the songs better. But my favorite song on this album is probably Rock and Roll. And the 30-minute version of Dazed and Confused, I mean, I like it. I mean, not to say that I don't like it at all. I really do like it, but it's not my favorite track on this album. It kind of drags on at some parts of it. Their next album I actually don't have, but I have heard it. It's called In Through the Outdoor. And it's the last studio release that came out before John Bonham died. And it's not my favorite, but it's not a bad album. It's just not their best. And my favorite song on it is probably In the Evening. But once again, not their best. This last album, their 9th album, came out after John Bonham had died, and it's not exactly a studio album. It's a bunch of outtakes that they never released through their career, and it's called Coda. And again, not one of my favorites, and I don't really have a favorite song, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be We're Gonna Groove. I also have a live album of their BBC sessions, which they did in the early 70s, which they do a fantastic live version of How Many More Times on this. And that's probably my favorite song on this. It's very good. And last but not least, they reunited in the year 2007 for one concert at the O2 Arena. And it was released as a live album and a film in 2012 called Celebration Day. This comes with the double album and the DVD of the concert, and it's just amazing. My favorite song on it is probably... their live version of Ramble On, which I actually like this live version better than the studio release. So, that concludes this video. Those are all of my Led Zeppelin albums. Tell me what you think of Led Zeppelin below in the comment section, and remember to thumbs up the video. Until next time, I'm Zach Mitchell.